Okay, good morning. We'll get started with this morning's agenda. First application on the agenda is unfinished business. It's an application A2018-95. That's 1110 New Dundee Road. Anyone in support or opposition, come forward, please. Rob, have you had an opportunity to review staff's report? They're recommending approval with conditions. I think there was a GRCA condition as well to get inserted into this. So that would be a third condition. Do you have any questions or comments? Nothing? Anyone? Next application is A2018-104. This is 387 King Street East. Here in support or opposition, come forward, please. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Good. How are you? The report I show is still asking for a deferral to today's meeting. Has anything happened?
I'm asking for exemplars because it's really complicated and I've got some questions.
Yeah, okay. There's not a staff recommendation on this, Brian? Okay. Well, maybe we'll... Yeah, it's the one that I show here.
He approves some of the following conditions.
Okay, I don't have that one. Thanks. All right, I'm going to ask the applicant to walk through the application for us, please.
Sure. Through you, Mr. Chair. The minor variance was submitted to the city to facilitate a site plan that's in process right now in conjunction with the application. The site plan application would allow for two separate buildings on the site, one two-story building which will be comprised of retail and office space, and one eight-story building which will be comprised of retail on the ground level, residential units above, with a total of 60 apartment buildings or residential units. The application as submitted to the City of Kitchener requested variances or relief from a number of considerations to the bylaw in order to facilitate the proposed development that's currently being considered by city staff as part of the site plan application. The site is quite unique. It is an amalgamation or a consolidation of a few of the properties along King Street in order to optimize the development potential of the site as well as optimize the parking on the site. We've had to seek or request a number of variances as submitted to the committee. Did you want me to walk through each of them? So we've asked for, the first variance we've asked for is a westerly side yard setback of 0 meters, whereas 1.2 is required. So if you look at the concept that accompanies the application, the proposed two-story building on the left-hand side, it actually butts up immediately to the property adjacent to the site, so hence the 0 yard setback. We've asked for a building height of 25.9 meters rather than 16.5 meters. There is a site-specific zoning provision that applies to the property that is intended to limit the height in order to encourage a consolidation or an overall comprehensive development of the site. While we were unable to consolidate all of the properties, it's our opinion that the proposed development does represent a significant comprehensive development of the block or consolidation of the lots. We're asking for permissions to allow for 105 parking spaces rather than the 152 that are required. There was a parking justification report that was submitted in support of the minor variance request. In addition, it's our opinion that given the location of the site, its proximity to King Street, existing Grand River Transit services, future ION services, as well as the walkability of the site, that the parking is appropriate, or the reduced parking on site would be appropriate. Fourth was to allow for parking space and building to encroach in the 4.5 meter driveway visibility triangle on Cedar Street. So again, if you look to the left-hand side of the concept, it's a unique layout, the way the property is situated. While we are maintaining for that screening and buffering along that parking space that's adjacent to Cedar Street, the way the property boundary falls is we're actually slightly encroaching into that visibility triangle. We're requesting balconies to have a setback of 0.675 meters rather than the 3 meters. We're asking for parking to be set back 3.2 meters from the property line rather than the 4.5 meters. We are asking for 6 parking spaces to be provided with a minimum width of 2.4 meters and a minimum length of 4.8 rather than the typical requirement of 2.6 and 5.2. This is to accommodate compact cars on the site and to allow for a food store to be located in a building with 1,151 square meters rather than the required 4,700. Again, that is a reflection of the site-specific zoning that's on the property. The intent for that zoning was to provide for a comprehensive development, which we think we are achieving that intent.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a question with regards to how the properties are being held and the request to allow the building height from 25.9 meters, of 25.9 meters instead of 16.5. It says here in the staff report, just one second. Each of the variants related to the setback will continue to maintain adequate separation from abutting properties and streets with a 0.0 meter westerly side yard setback on the shared property line with 357 King Street is not a concern as both properties are owned by the same people. So they haven't merged in title is my question. So how can we move forward with this? Because if they're not merged in title and we're allowing this 0.0 meter westerly side yard, because they're justifying it saying they're owned by the same person, but shouldn't they be merged on title is my concern, because ultimately they could sell that other property with a 0 meter side yard line.
Brian?
How about I step in first and answer that question? So I think if you look at, through the chair, if you look at the front page, Andrew, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Kristen, the 0 meter setback is to the 357, right?
Yes.
Right? So, and the building is going to to abut that property.
Yes, through you,
And-
Mr. Chair, I think that the intent is that this would function similar to buildings you see downtown where they abut face to face, if they don't technically have yards in between them.
Yes.
This is essentially just a continuation of the facades that you would see further down on King Street, continuing eastward.
So it's just a recognition of that.
Thank you.
Anyone have any other questions?
Yes, Mr. Chair, through you, to staff or the applicant, I'm a little curious and maybe even concerned about the DVT on, I guess it'd be the westerly side of the property on Cedar Street, and the north DVT for the entrance and exit to this property. And that's a parking space, if I'm understanding it correctly.
Through you, Mr. Chair, on the east side of the property or the right side of the concept that you see, we don't have any encroachment into that DVT. There is a concrete sidewalk, and it is the surface treatment that's in that area, but the visibility itself remains. On the west-hand side of the property, we do have a landscape area. It's a unique property circumstance. There's a road widening that's actually required along Cedar Street, which is pushing our property line back. So we are deficient by about 1 meter into that visibility triangle. We're trying to maintain the intent of it. There is a landscape patch there that will be landscaped and designed appropriately to keep for low-growing species that don't interfere with the visibility triangle, but this is a combination of the unique property layout as well as the road widening that's required along Cedar Street.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to the applicant. So if I'm understanding it correctly, the DVT deficiency is primarily caused by the road widening.
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions or comments?
I just kind of have to question, once again, we're here, we're asking for a 33% parking reduction on a site that is being built out to the borders for sure. We have, staff have reviewed a parking plan and they're satisfied with a 33% parking reduction?
Through you, Mr. Chair, our staff have looked at it and we are supportive of the reduction.
That's all for me. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Anything further? Motion?
I'll make a motion. I'd like to make a motion to approve subject to the conditions as outlined in the staff report.
Second?
I'll second that, Mr. Chair.
All in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next application is a sign application, SG 2018-10. It's 505 Franklin Street North. Anyone here in support or opposition, come forward, please.
Good morning.
Good morning. Your name?
Sorry?
Your name?
Cindy Hanby?
Cindy. You had an opportunity to review staff's report, Cindy?
Yes.
Okay, and they're recommending approval with conditions, which are fairly standard conditions. Do you have any questions or comments? Or
No, none at this point.
okay, you're in agreement with staff's recommendations?
I am, yes.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Bob?
Yes, Mr. Chair. In reviewing the report, and I'm more or less in support of it with a little modification, if we may. Traditionally, where we have a changing copy sign close to residential areas, we put in two conditions. One is that the changing copy portion of the sign be turned off between certain hours, and that's covered. But we've also put in another condition that the image on the changing copy sign remains static for at least 6 seconds. That's something we have put in as a condition on numerous applications over the last little while. So if I may, Mr. Chair, I'd like to add that the changing copy portion of the sign be static for at least 6 seconds.
All right, is that fine?
Agreed.
Okay, good. All right, so recommendation's been amended. Any other comments, motion?
Mr. Chair, I move that this be accepted as amended.
Second? Second. All in favor? Carried, thanks. Please be advised that this committee simply makes, for signs and fences, makes a recommendation to council. So they have the final approval, and council will be meeting on this on Monday, November the 19th.
Okay.
So it'd
Thank you.
be a good idea to be there.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Next application, SG 2018-11, 1700 Queens Boulevard. Sign application once again. Anyone support or opposition? Come forward, please. Good morning. Your name?
I'm Jennifer Sullivan.
Great, thanks, Jennifer. Have you had an opportunity to review staff's report?
I did, yes.
Recommending approval with conditions. I would imagine that my colleague will want to see the same amendment for static for 6 seconds. Okay, so that will be amended accordingly. Did you have any questions or comments?
Condition 4 states it needs to be done prior to January 2nd, 2008. And I'd assume, or sorry, 2018, or assume that's 2019.
Yep. So that needs to be amended. Very good, thank you. Yeah. So we'll amend that to 2019 as well. Anything else? No? Yeah.
I'll move it as recommended.
Second? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Once again, it goes to council for their final approval on November 19th.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next application, SG 2018-12, 22 Frederick Street. Support or opposition, come forward, please.
Good morning.
Morning. Have you had an opportunity to review staff report?
I have.
Okay, they're recommending approval with one condition, which is actually just the sign permit. Anyone have any questions or comments? No?
None from me, Mr. Chair.
Motion? Bob?
I make a motion to recommend approval, or a motion for approval based upon the staff report.
Second? All in favor? Carried. And once again, just like the last two, it will be going to council the 19th of November. Thank you. All right, next application, 2018-106. It's 15 Tartan Ave. Support or opposition, come forward, please.
Good morning.
Good morning. Your name?
It's Nick Bogart, agent for the applicant.
Okay, Nick. Staff reporting recommendations without conditions. Anyone have questions or comments? Nick? Yeah.
Through you, Mr. Chair, just as a matter of being consistent on these applications, I'd like to add another condition that, as per the engineering requests, that a building permit be obtained.
Is that fine?
That's fine, yes.
Okay. So the application is amended with one condition.
I'd like to make a motion to approve this application as amended.
Second? All in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next application is a 2018-107, 624 King Street West. Support or opposition, come forward, please.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. My name's James Fryatt. I'm an architect. I'm here on behalf of the owners of the property, and it's in regards to our application for minor variance. We have a copy of the staff report, which has been developed in close consultation with staff, both transportation and planning. We've reviewed the conditions, and we're in agreement and would request that you approve the application.
Great, thanks, James. Anyone have any questions or comments?
Through you, Mr. Chair, just so I'm understanding this, this is essentially a revisit to a previous application, and really all it is just some stuff that got left out the first time around regarding parking variances?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. Fundamentally, that's the case. As we got into more detail, talking to Transportation Services, we found a number of small items that we needed to adjust, and that's been done and was addressed in the report.
Okay.
Thank you. That answers my question. I have no concerns other than that, Mr. Chair.
I'd like to make a motion to approve as outlined in the staff report.
Second. All in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Next application is 2018-108, 400 Biggaman Center Drive. Anyone support or opposition, come forward, please. Let's see, this one has a recommendation for deferral, I believe, as it deals with Metrolinx.
Through you, Mr. Chair, there is some updated information on that, and there's a updated staff recommendation as there were discussions that occurred with Metrolinx, and my understanding and staff can confirm that Metrolinx is supportive of the proposed variance for the setback and removal of the berm, subject to that portion of the building being for warehousing. So we have a copy of a new staff recommendation in support of the variance.
Well, it's good that you do, because I don't.
Sorry, with me is Mr. Luigi Fanton. He's the operations director at Waterloo Brewing, if there's any questions as well.
Yeah, the only thing that we have here is an email, I guess, that you're trying to secure something in writing in advance of today's meeting. And were you able to do that?
So we haven't seen anything in writing. What we understood just from our brief discussion with planning staff is that they're prepared to recommend the proposal as suggested here with the condition that written confirmation be received.
Yeah, I think, in my opinion anyways, we need to see it in writing opposed to hearsay, so I'll forward on.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, what if we altered the recommendation or added a condition that they get formal writing so that they don't have to come back here? You know, that way they have to prove it to the Director of Planning, to the satisfaction of the Director of Planning.
Sure.
That would stipulate it. It would get them what they need, but it would provide security for us as well. Would that be acceptable?
Sorry, so the condition is to receive written confirmation to the satisfaction of Director of Planning?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
You fine with that, Brian?
Yes, as well, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Through you, Mr. Chair, seeing this initial recommendation was to defer, staff really doesn't have much in the way of any conditions they wanted to impose, other than building has made the traditional request for a building permit. Are there any other conditions that staff would normally put on an application such as this?
Through you, Mr. Chair, it is actually going through a site plan approval process, and I think staff are satisfied that those technical requirements will be required through that. So, well, we're satisfied, so, as is.
Do you want to tie it to the site plan?
I mean, you could. I mean, as long as
usually do
the
that.
applicant is okay with that. I mean, we have done that. I don't think it's necessarily necessary, but
It's probably
an
not
extra.
a bad
Okay.
idea, because if for some reason the site plan didn't get approved, this, right, still goes ahead, so.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Chair, then I'm prepared to move ahead with this with two conditions.
Three.
Three 3 conditions, did you say?
Building permit, you said, didn't you?
Building permit, and that it be receive site plan approval. What's the third one?
The third one would be the letter from Metrolinx.
Right. Okay, so I move that this be approved with the 3 conditions as we have discussed.
I'll second that.
All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Next application is A 2018-109-1331 Country Stone Drive. Supporter opposition, come forward, please.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Stephanie Murdich here on behalf of the applicant, Sunbest Homes, with Dave Aston.
Okay, staff's recommending approval with just one condition, that's for building permit. I take it you don't have any questions or concerns? Anyone else?
No, we reviewed the staff report and we support the staff recommendation. We've reviewed the staff report and support the staff recommendation.
Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chair, this is fairly straightforward, very minor reduction in parking, and the one condition of a building permit. I move that this be approved as per the staff report.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next application is 2018, 97 River Trail Ave. Supporter opposition? Good morning. Your name? Staff's recommending approval with 2 conditions. I take it this is just something temporary because of a model home, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, do you have any questions or comments? Do you understand the conditions?
Nope, everything's good.
Okay, you're fine with that? Anyone?
No comments from me.
Just a glib comment. I think this is the first time we've seen a variance for a temporary parking spot.
Yeah.
Not that it changes the outcome at all, but I just found it interesting. So, was that a motion, Andrew?
Sure. I'd make a motion to approve as later in the staff report.
With the 2 conditions, I'll second that.
All in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next application is A 2018-112, 84 Manson Street. Anyone support opposition, come forward, please.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I am Gary Cushing. I'm the owner.
Okay, Gary, have you had an opportunity to review staff's report?
Yes.
And they're recommending with approval with the conditions. Do you have any questions or comments?
Not at all.
Straightforward. Do you understand the conditions? Is there any questions or comments from my colleagues?
I have a question for staff. Recommendation B2. It states here that it is demonstrated via survey, photograph, or other means to the satisfaction of the Director of Planning that a parking space with a minimum depth provided and cover be shown. Be provided between the sidewalk and the base of the covered porch of the subject property by November 1st, 2019. So what happens if it doesn't?
If it doesn't get approved, if he doesn't do it by that time,
Well, if he
yeah,
cannot- if he
through the
cannot
chair,
demonstrate
sorry,
it.
he would have to reapply. We could make him, yeah, so. Effectively what we're trying to do with a lot of our variances is, and you've probably seen it in the past, is provide timeframes in which to fulfill these things. In the past, we've had variances where they haven't been fulfilled, so if we put a time frame on it, it kind of forces their hand. So that's really what it's for. Although I'm very confident he will do that in that time frame, but that's really...
I just want to make sure that it is going to be able to be done, right? We
Yeah.
don't want to put a condition in. That's, I want some comfort level knowing that we're not going to have an issue clearing this condition, because then, he's here for nothing, right? That was my only concern, really.
Okay.
I do have a concern about the timing as well for November 1st. That gives him 2 weeks to do this. If he needs to hire a surveyor or something like that to get it done. Pardon me, I retract that.
Through the chair, if I can offer some advice as well. This is the first time I've spoken with staff regarding the condition, so the decision will be written in 2 parts, meaning that the variances outlined in A1 would be approved with the condition of the building permit. That means the variance outlined in condition B, if he's not able to fulfill the conditions, it wouldn't impact the variances outlined in recommendation A. So similar if something was approved and refused, there are two approval sections in this decision. It will indicate the first decision and then a second decision with subsequent conditions relating to those, if that provides some clarity.
And we feel that this practically can happen, is that correct?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, I missed that.
This is something that's obtainable?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, so we're not setting someone up for failure, I guess.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to hear from the applicant that he's satisfied with that condition, that you can meet that condition.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Okay, all right then.
I'd like to make a recommendation to move this application to approve it, subject to the conditions as outlined in the staff report.
I'll second that, Mr. Chair.
All in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next application is A 2018-113, 56 Cameron Street North. Support or opposition, come forward, please.
Good morning. My name is Tony Rossell. I'm the owner of the unit.
Okay, Tony, have you had an opportunity to review staff's report?
Yes, I just finished reading it this morning.
Okay, and recommending approval with 4 conditions. Do you have any questions or comments? Or?
I do have a comment about the first recommendation about having a barrier provided. Essentially, my concern is this would be an eyesore to the City of Kitchener. It would not be appreciated by my neighbor, and it would include digging up the existing driveway, because we're talking about 3 inches of existing the driveway that is on his side of the land. So for the past 8 years, when I've been living and then later renting this unit out, my neighbor Mark has never had any issues or complaints about that. Do you have any questions or comments?
Okay. Sorry, through the chair. I think the intent of this condition is really to delineate the 2 property boundaries, and I appreciate what he's saying, and he gets along with his neighbor right now, and that's great. But if that neighbor moves and they don't like it, then it could be. So I'm thinking, is there any way of even a fence? Is that a way of?
We could put up a fence, but then it would just be for the front part where the driveway is, and then it could potentially, like I would have to take the fence all the way to the backyard, and I would have to work with my neighbor about that.
Yeah. Like, I think we're open to work with this gentleman and come up with something that works. So I'm okay with leaving the condition with the flexibility that we will work. And if for whatever reason it does not work, for whatever reason, we could clear it off at the staff level if we've exhausted every avenue. And I would be okay with doing that, Mr. Chair. You okay? Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I wasn't quite aware that the applicant is using, did you say 3 inches of the neighbor's property for parking? Sort of like an unofficial encroachment?
Yeah, if I may, I can I'm not sure if you have this from the application. It's the second last page on it. If you look right below the red line, it says asphalt from neighbor. So that's where the existing driveway is. And then it's right beside my neighbor's walkway that is to their side entrance.
So through you, Mr. Chairman, so I'm clear, your neighbor had the driveway reconstructed at some point in time, and he encroached onto your property?
No, the other way around. It's my driveway when it was built. It was built with 3 inches on the side. But then at the same point, 60 Cameron Street, if you look at the drawing, you'll see that his driveway is encroaching about 3 inches on mine as well. So my suspicion is when the driveways were created, there was a different understanding of where exactly the line was. Pardon?
The asphalt company probably just paved to the sidewalk.
No, I'm not talking to the sidewalk. I'm talking about like on my side of
No,
the
your
line.
neighbor's walkway, I mean.
Okay, there's obviously, through you, Mr. Chairman, there's obviously an encroachment issue here, but nobody has any issues with it. It's probably been like that for a lot of years.
Yeah.
It's an existing condition. To put a curb in there for whatever reason, it's not like we're trying to split 2 driveways down the middle and there's issues here. I don't understand why we'd put a curb in between a walkway. And it is a concrete walkway and followed by beside asphalt?
So 52 Cameron Street, they've got a walkway to the side, and then immediately beside it is the existing driveway, and that goes over onto the neighbor's yard by 3 inches.
If I may, Mr. Chair, I share staff's concern down the road. The applicant and his neighbor obviously are getting along fine, and it's not a particular problem for them at this particular time. But I do echo staff's concern that down the road there may be an issue of someone parking on someone else's property, or at least 3 inches of it. So I'm in support of some form of delineation along that property line, curb, fence, paint a line, put in landscaping. I think it's important that we solidify where that property line is for this application.
If I may, would it be fine for me to just paint a line over there, and if that's to my neighbor's satisfaction? And then should that also happen with my neighbor on the other side with 60 Cameron Street? Since he's parking on my driveway as well.
The way that the application's written up, I don't think this committee needs to dissect it that deeply, because it's left up to staff, and they can handle it or deal with it the way that they want. The only other proper way to deal with this is, if you don't want to do that, would be to have an encroachment agreement with your neighbor. That would solidify that as well. So this is probably easier. No, I'm just saying what's right is right, so.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I agree. Staff is very capable of handling this kind of minor detail. We don't have to get into the specifics, but I do support staff with the regard to it needs to be clarified now. If it's coming to this committee for certification, then we should get it right. And I agree with staff that something needs to be done, and I'm fully prepared to let staff make a decision, whether it's a painted line, landscaping, fence. Those are details that staff needs to work out.
All right. So, is that a motion?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I move that this be approved With the 4 conditions, with an amendment, where is it? That a barrier, that a barrier provided to the
Just
defined
as
location.
written.
As written.
Yeah, all right. Second? All in favor? Carried. Thanks.
Thank you.
Application 2018-114, it's 227 Manitou Drive. Support or opposition, come forward, please. Good morning.
Good morning.
Your name,
Ali
sir?
Rasool, the owner of the property, and I am in agreement with the all recommendation of the city staff.
Okay, good. Anyone have any questions or comments?
None for me, Mr. Chair.
I have no concerns or questions, Mr. Chair.
Okay, a motion?
I move that this be approved with the 3 conditions in the staff report.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Application 2018-115, it's 1425 Block Line Road. Support or opposition?
Good morning.
Morning, Scott. Have you had an opportunity to review staff's report?
I have. I do have a comment about the recommendation at the appropriate time.
Okay. All right. Any questions or comments? Nothing? Motion?
Before you proceed, just
Oh,
a comment
sorry.
about the recommendation. I do have a concern that there's a request or a note in the recommendation about it, the 365 units. This project's currently in the design phase through mechanical, electrical, and through that process, they may end up with 364 units, they may end up with 360. I don't know the total. All we know is that it's going to be a 12-story building and an 8-story building. I'm wondering if we can remove that context from the recommendation, just so that in the future, if someone comes back, they look at this and they say, well, they built a project that's 360 units, this variance no longer applies. I have some wording examples if committee would like to see those for some options.
I'd be curious to, through you, Mr. Chairman, I'd be curious to see the final design before we're making a recommendation for a parking reduction. You know, if you're still in the design phases, I always question the idea of why are we making this compliant to the zoning bylaw? If we're here for a zoning bylaw amendment, you know, why are we here if it's not even final design? What are we amending? We don't know the final product of what we're amending at this point in time. You know, and then why aren't we designing it to meet the zoning bylaw requirements instead of being in front of the committee at this time? If you're still in the design phase, that's just one of my questions or concerns.
If I could respond to that. Through you, Mr. Chair, I've been in front of this committee on numerous occasions seeking parking reductions. I received one for Highland Road in support of Savick Homes. Phase 2, Phase 3, the final phases of that project aren't known. We simply got a modification to the actual parking requirement, the rate, not based on unit number. I think this just provides some flexibility to the project. The parking rate, as I'm sure staff will confirm, would be applicable regardless of whether it's 360 units, 370 units. It's the rate that we're modifying, and that rate would be applicable regardless of the number of units.
In actuality, we're assessing how many spaces per unit per doors, correct? So I can't see granting any greater than 365 if that's what's being evaluated or that's what we're basing our decision on now. I could see if you're more comfortable because you have a concern is containing a total of no greater than 365 units. I think that would be a reasonable way to look at it. Brian?
Through the chair, I would agree with that assessment. Maybe if I could maybe ask a question through you, Mr. Chair, to the applicant, is because I'm not that familiar with this one, Scott. Is there a site plan application associated with this one, or?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, a site plan application is in process. We're expecting approval in principle imminently. It's been through the SPRC meeting, and we're expecting that shortly.
Okay, so then maybe just an amendment containing a total no greater than 365 units, would that?
That would be acceptable to us, up to
Fine, Scott?
365 units or something. I can't see the project going more than that.
Right, okay, all right.
But they may end up losing a unit due to some other issue.
Yeah, I understand. No, it's, yeah, good housekeeping, so. All right, so we'll amend the recommendation to that then, just after it says containing a total of no greater than 365 units, and then there we go. All right. Okay, anything else? Questions, comments, motion? Okay.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I move that this be approved with the one condition, but the preamble being modified for up to a total of 365 units, or whatever the wording was.
Yeah, the wording that I came up with. Okay, motion, second. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, last applications, B 2018-116. It's 357 King Street East. Support opposition, come forward, please.
Hi, I'm Joanna Crespo on behalf of the applicant or owner.
Okay, Joanna, have you seen staff's report? And they're making recommendation with 4 conditions. Do you have any questions or comments?
No, we have no issues with these recommendations.
Okay. Okay, any questions or comments? It's really as it's
I have no questions or concerns, and I'll make a motion to approve, subject to the staff report and the recommendations.
All right, second.
Before we get too far into this, just some comments. I know this, well, actually, this application is very much tied into one we discussed just previously. I think it's a good plan, and I know this location, having lived in that neighborhood, not recently, but years ago. And just a comment through you, Mr. Chair, to the applicant. I really like the changes you've made to the building. I don't think there was much in the way of structural changes, but it certainly took a building and a business that had been there for decades, and you've done a great retrofit to the front. And so, as a citizen, thank you very much for beautifying our downtown. I have no other concerns. So was that a motion? Yeah. I will second that motion.
Okay, all in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn. Second. Carried. Thanks.